In this video, we'll have a bird's eye view of Luzid, of basically the different parts and features that it provides. In the previous video, we kind of went really quickly through all of them, or some of them at least. We saw that the validator that Luzid uses is blazingly fast, which shortens your feedback loop, obviously. And also we saw that the tic-tac-toe program that we were actually using was not even the validator at the beginning, but it got cloned on demand from, in this case, DevNet, but you can configure that to also clone from the mainnet. And if you're developing programs locally, then you can basically watch your workspace, and whenever a program changes, it will be automatically cloned into the validator like the new version, or you can just clone it one time if you prefer that. And we saw that Luzid is watching transactions live as they come in. And there are multiple ways to inspect those, as well as the account data associated with those transactions. And you can also edit or mutate account data directly or via snapshots. The first piece of Luzid that we're going to look at is the Luzid dashboard, which provides us with the stats about Luzid itself, stats about the validator, like what current slot is actually active right now and how many transactions we're running so far, as well as the config of the validator. So what we do here now is we just launch the UI app first. And we expect to see a dashboard, but the Luzid UI tells us that, okay, there's no Luzid backend found. And we basically need to start that in the terminal. And then the UI will basically attach immediately. We can see that here and present us with a dashboard. Now we can restart this as many times as we want. The UI will automatically reconnect every time. And now we can see that we have the Luzid stats here. When we got the slots ticking, you can see that the slots are actually ticking faster than you're used to, probably because this is embedding the faster validator, and that's why the slot or like the milliseconds per slot are much smaller. So it's 50 milliseconds per slot instead of 400 milliseconds per slot. You can also see that we have 0 transactions at this point, and we can quickly change that if we just airdrop. So we saw this went to 1 now, right? And we can repeat that, and now we have 2 transactions here. And below we have the validator configuration. And just pointing out, you can copy all these values if you need to. Might be useful to inspect the ledger if you wanted to, for instance. Now let's look at the Luzid Transactions tab, which lists transactions as they're coming in. They're updated live, and they are sorted by the most recent on top. So you can see obviously what's most interesting first. And that view also provides access to the details of those transactions, as well as allows you to inspect the accounts related to these transactions. So let's have a look here. We're going to look at the transactions tab. Now notice that I can go here also with shortcuts. I'm pressing Shift-1, Shift-2 to go back and forth between the dashboard obviously, and the transactions. Obviously, we can also just click on it. And here we see these transactions that we sent earlier while we were showing the dashboard, basically these airdrops. Now, if I send another one of those, we can see that immediately it comes in. There's no delay, it's super fast. And now we can look at also the account changes that happened in this transaction. Like for instance, here we'd sent 1 SOL to this account, so it went from 2 to 3. And if this account had data, we could also inspect that, but that's the topic of another video that explains all that in detail. Now let's look at the next page of Luzid, which is the Luzid accounts page. And that one provides 3 different tabs. One is development accounts, which shows you the most relevant accounts inside the validator. Basically accounts that you probably are not interested in, like built-in Solana accounts are not shown there, but this basically allows you to inspect those as well as take snapshots of the account state at that point. And then in the next tab, the account snapshots tab, you can access those saved snapshots, and you can also restore them if you'd want to. And then we have a final tab we're going to show, which are for remote accounts. And there you can basically clone accounts from a remote cluster like DevNet or mainnet into the local development cluster. So let's have a look here. I'm going to account, I can Shift-3 to get there. And here we can see that this is the account that we are basically airdropping to the entire time. And we can see that it has 3 SOL in it, doesn't have any data. And what we want to do here, if we could, for instance, create a snapshot real quick, and we call that, let's say, Uno, create it. Done. Now, if you jump over to account snapshots, we have that snapshot here, and we could now go ahead and restore that. We can see that basically the account state is captured there, and we could restore it if we wanted to. We don't want to do that right now, so we just delete that. Let's look actually at the remote accounts. So the remote accounts allows us, as I said, to clone from chain. For instance, if we paste an account address here of some account that actually lives on a mainnet, we can see that it discovers, okay, this account lives on mainnet, it's actually owned by the token program, and we can go ahead and just clone that. And after a few seconds, we have that account now in our validator. We can go back to development accounts, and this account is now here, right? And we can actually look at the data of that account. Obviously, there is no parse data available because the token program doesn't provide us with an IDL to know how to parse it. Now, if you look here, we have now that the clone instruction is now here in our transactions because that actually was performed via a transaction. This was just a quick demonstration of restoring snapshots. We will get into much more detail later in a future video. Let's look at the next page of Luzid, which is Workspaces. So Workspaces are for you to manage local programs and accounts, right? So if you have, for instance, a folder with the project in it and you are creating a Solana contract there, you register that workspace with Luzid, and Luzid then provides you features like you can clone that program into the validator, or you can even watch it so it gets cloned every time when it changes, which I call the hot swap feature. Now, if you just launch Luzid with a dot after it like this, then the workspace in which you launch Luzid from will automatically be added to the validator. So I actually have a bunch of workspaces already here in my validator. So we have, for instance, here the Solana X program, which I created, and we have the warm and the counter. Now I can manually clone that. Let's first look at it though. Like it basically Luzid discovered the name of the package, program ID, and basically where the program and the IDL are located. And then I can just go ahead and clone that. And if you then go to transactions, we can see that these accounts got cloned. In this case, the program buffer and the IDL buffer, and then the upgraded loader was called to load that program properly into the validator. And yeah, and obviously I can also say I want to just watch that, which at the very first moment it clones it into the validator, and then it will watch it. And as I mentioned, it will then clone it every time you recompile your program or update your IDL. And this concludes the bird's eye view of Luzid. You might notice that there's an inspect page here, but that only becomes relevant once we look into how to inspect account data with Luzid. And in the next video, we'll actually go into the transactions page in much more detail, showing how to inspect transactions, how to show logs, how to inspect account data, and how to show the history of account data changes and link it back to the transactions that caused those changes. So I hope you keep watching, and I'll see you in the next video.